I just wanted to come on here today and talk about something that I posted um, that I feel that is important that we talk about. Um, Being that we all have gone through life changes, we've all had something happen to us at one point or another in our lives. And I think that it's important that we understand the divine purpose of life. Changing our narrative, we must change our narrative. I'm not saying get over it, I'm saying change the way you look at it. For example, many people may have had an absent father or absent mother, and you feel as if they abandoned you. Yeah, they abandoned you. I understand that. But we have to take the lessons that we were self-taught because of those things happening to us. For instance, I know people who didn't have a father and became tremendous fathers. I know people who didn't have a mother to really connect with. They were emotionally available, always working, always trying to provide for their children, being that they were a single parent. And those people became phenomenal women. And many times in our life, we experience very traumatic situations and we don't know how to bounce back from it. And it is difficult. It is very difficult to bounce back from traumatic experiences. After 29 years of life, I'm just starting to realize how toxic some learned behaviors that I had adapted to was so toxic for my life, and how it kind of put me in a standstill in my life where I wasn't able to move forward because I was looking at things always in a negative perception. I've always been vocal about my childhood, my upbringing. I had both parents in my home, but at the same time, emotionally available was not something they were to me. They were great parents in providing and understanding the necessity of education. They always supported us in every aspect of our lives, but one thing that they lacked was emotional availability. And parents don't understand that sometimes everything that you give your child is okay, but when it's time to have difficult conversations about sex and hygiene and just the world in general, it requires some emotional availability on your part. And so, growing up, my parents both worked until my dad fell ill. And one thing I can remember is going into my preteen years, I needed to have conversations with my mom about certain things as a woman. And she was not available because she was working, and by the time I got out of school, she was at work, and by the time she got home from work, I was asleep for the next day of school. So I never was able to have those conversations with my mom about different things. And so, in that being said, it taught me how to be emotionally available for my child at every point and allow my child to express herself openly without criticism or critiquing her, but allowing her to express how she feels. Now, did I always do that with her? No, absolutely not. Even though that she's only 5 years old, I still have that open communication with her where she can tell me how she feels about something and me not be offensive, because it's not about me. It's about how she's feeling. And when she's able to critique and understand how she's feeling, it's important that I take a step back as a mother and not feel attacked, but to be open-minded about how she's feeling and why she's feeling like this. Now, if I did not change my narrative and became the victim at all times, I would not have been able to have that open communication with my child at the age of 5. Because when kids grow up, their brains are constantly learning behaviors from the time they're 2 to the time they're about 7. So in this time period, she understands that open communication and transparent communication at all times is very important. So that when she goes older, she will understand, even though I may be busy, I still will have that room for her to express herself willingly. And so, with that being said, going back to changing our narrative, it's important that we look at things at a different standpoint, and really get to the root of things. Because if we don't get to the root of our issues that we have within ourselves, with our parents, with our guardians, with the family members, we will never prosper to the next level that we need to go in life to walk into our destiny, because we're stuck at what somebody did to us, instead of saying, well, because you did this to me, I learned respect. I learned how to always be present. I learned to listen to people when they talk to me. I learned that my daughter needs a mother who's not only physically and mentally providing necessities, but emotionally providing what she needs as a child from her mother. Being a little girl, she needs certain things from her mother, and she also needs certain things from her father. And when you begin to heal, you begin to understand that everything that has occurred to you under the sun has been preordained. I know the plans that I have for you and to prosper you and not harm you, but to give you life in a good future. That's Jeremiah 29:11. The other one is, I'm paraphrasing, how God already ordained us and predestined us for life. So everything that's occurring in our life is already predestined. So the things that have occurred to me, the bullying, the emotional abandonment, the sexual abuse, the betrayal, all those things are working together for my good. Even though I didn't see it right there, I didn't know why I had to go through the constant bullying from every aspect of my life, to home, school, family, everything. Always made fun of me. But it was for my good, because now the perception of other people do not change how I feel about myself. That didn't come overnight. That just came within the last year and a half, too, on this healing journey. But I used those things to make me better. I remember going through something at a very young age, and I said, I would never allow anyone to take anything of mine. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and I remember just feeling like, why are they doing this to us? What did we do to deserve this? It's cold outside. I want to go back in my house. I want to do this, that, and the other. But at that moment, I could not do anything. And that traumatized me as a little girl. So, like, I worked my butt off to pay my car note, to pay my rent, to pay my utilities, to pay my car insurance, because I was like, if I ever get something, no one will ever come take it from me. Now, that traumatic situation for me at such an early age, I changed that narrative into positive, and I allow it to fuel me to be a constant provider for self and not lean on anyone else. And so one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is a story that many of you may know, many of you may not know. But in looking up Oprah Winfrey, when I decided that I was going to do this live, she went through a very traumatic childhood. Like from molestation to abandonment to just everything. But somewhere along the way in her life, she changed her narrative. She said, I'm no longer going to be a victim to what has happened in my life, but I am going to use that to fuel me to go forward. And so now that she has understood, like, this is where my pain comes from, because of my childhood, this is X, Y, and Z, and now I need to face the unspoken truth and the traumatic experiences in order to go forward to the next level in our lives. So in order for us to actually change the narrative, we have to dig deep down into our souls and pull up and unveil those things that we've covered and buried for so many years and face those things. It's not going to happen overnight. Believe me, I've just got to the point where I can love myself and say, you know what? I love myself and I don't care what nobody else say. And I'm 29 years old. But it took for me to start this journey of healing to understand that those toxic learned behaviors that I had adapted at such a very young age had become something that I brought into my life that kind of kept me stuck and complacent in a place that was not meant for me to stay. And I became the victim, and I was the victim for so many years. I held a grudge for about 8-9 years because I was like, how dare you do this to me? How dare you put something before me? How dare you hurt me? But I never understood that they wasn't hurting me intentionally. They was not hurting me intentionally. They was hurting themselves. They was hurting themselves. I'm sorry, I'm about to jump out my skin. They were hurting themselves. They were hurting deep down inside. And those traumatic experiences that they never faced had steered their whole life. It steered their whole entire life because of the broken little girl they didn't deal with. So, you have an adult living a life, right? They have grown older. They're living a life, but they're not happy with themselves because they still remember the little girl. They were still the little girl who needed their mommy. So they grew older, still needing something to attach to because of the void that they needed. So in essence, I became that nurturing spirit that they longed for so many years. Woo! Wow, thank you, God. So, in understanding that it wasn't her hurting me, it was the broken little girl crying out for help. And because those things had happened to me and I became cognitively aware that this was brokenness beyond repair, because they had not faced the deep-rooted issues. So with that being said, I grew up with those toxic traits, and it became a cycle. And I was the victim for 10 years, just spinning my wheels, praising my God, and doing all this stuff, but still broken and holding grudges and unforgiveness and bitterness and hatred and just all this stuff. Until I said, wait, something's got to change. Something must change in me, because I'm not hindering her from going to the next level. I'm hindering me to go to the next level. And when I understood that I was allowing my past to control my now, I had to release those shackles. And I had to change those narratives. So everything that happened, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I need you, thank you for doing all that you've done when you didn't know how. Woo! Jesus, thank you, because everything that you lack, God has replenished in me. It allowed me to heal. It allowed me to see things in a different light. And now, where I am in life, I am able to say, thank you, God, for all you've done. All the trials and tribulations, all the pain, all the traumatic experience, everything that happened. Thank you, because now I have given voice to the voiceless. I am living out my purpose, and I'm able to help people due to everything I've experienced and how I can help them change their narrative. When I began to change my narrative, I found by changing my narrative, I mean, when I start looking at things in a different light, when I stop thinking like, oh, this happened to me, I started saying, why did this happen to me? What glory am I to bring to the kingdom because this has happened to me? Because it's nothing but the grace that covered me, that I didn't go out there and choose a different lifestyle. Y'all gotta hear me. We gotta change our focus. We have to change our focus. We have to change our narrative. Thank you, God, that it happened to me. Thank you, God, that it didn't kill me. Now, what am I to do? Who am I to inspire? Who am I to reach out to? Who am I to teach? Who am I to pull up out of the pit of victimization? Who am I pulling out with me? Who am I to help? Who am I to, help seek healing? You guys don't understand. When you change your narrative, you are able to embrace the right now. And when you embrace the right now, you will be able to understand the next level that you're going to. But you cannot move forward holding on to what they did in the past. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. The generation who raised us came from a generation of brokenness. They came from a generation of silence. They came from a generation of hopelessness. They were not given the tools to understand that it's okay to change. I tell people all the time, many people are still enslaved mentally because they did not learn the tools to break the chains. There are many things in our life that we cannot change. If we were to go back and look at our pathology of our families, we will understand they were not given tools to break chains because they were always told that there will be nothing. Our parents did the best they could for what they had. And though some of our parents were victim to the Ronald Reagan epidemic, it's okay. It is okay. Because that was their narrative that they didn't know how to change. You cannot continue your life shackled up because they didn't know how to break the chains. Change the narrative. Change your focus. Change how you view things. Because once you change that, I'm telling you, there's an abundance of blessings waiting for you. But you have to loose those shackles on your mind. Because as long as you stay bound to your past, you will never move forward to your future. You know, the saddest thing is that the Ronald Reagan epidemic stole a lot of people's purpose. A lot of people died from overdose, alcoholism, and they had so much greatness inside of them, but the brokenness in them wouldn't allow them to be free. And so many people die never living their purpose, never meeting their destiny. We have to be the change agents for our generation, so the next generation under us, that we're not raising broken kids. My daughter won't be another broken daughter. Absolutely not. I declare my daughter will not be broken. My daughter will not be bound to toxic learned behaviors because of my inability to heal. When you change your focus, you free yourself. You liberate yourself to tap into the next level in life. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen when you wake up. It's not going to be easy unveiling those deep-rooted, seated, traumatic experiences. It's not going to be easy. But would you rather die never reaching your purpose? Or would you rather face and confront your deepest rooted issues with yourself so that you can be free and walk into everything that you've asked God for? Sometimes our blessings are not released because we're so bound in our now. Jesus, have mercy, Lord. Changing our narratives and redirecting our stories. We're not changing our story. We're changing how we look at our story. We're changing from being a victim to being victorious. When you are victorious over something, it cannot hold you anymore. It's so funny because I remember starting my journey of healing. Understanding that I was beautiful. After 27 years of being told you're ugly, you're never enough, no one will ever love you. Those were deep-rooted things told to me in a very vulnerable stage of my life. And when I finally came to grips that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that nothing can stop me from reaching my destiny but me. Somebody told me, You look better with long hair. Even though everybody knows this a wig. Saying like, you look better with long hair. And that day was the last day they talked to me. Because your expectations and your perception of me does not matter. And because you can't accept me for my now, you don't deserve me in my future. You don't even deserve the qualities of me in my future. And that was like breathtaking to me, because I was like, oh, I just cut you off right there with no questions asked. But it took me a long time to get there. So I'm going to leave you with this. Change your narrative because you want to live. And redirect your story so that you can see all that God has for you. Redirect how you perceive people and their intentions. Unveil those skeletons in your closet. That deep-rooted bitterness, hatred, and just unforgiveness. Because you are holding yourself captive to the next level in life. It's nobody but you holding yourself back. What they did to you is not who you are. And you can overcome this. So until next time, change the narrative and redirect your story. Become victorious so that you are liberated into your destiny.